Thank you for the introduction and the welcome and so on. It's great to be here in this new and emerging part of Rotterdam. It's an interesting location. I'm here to talk to you about enabling enterprises with global IoT. We're working very closely with Tele2, and much of the technology that we're delivering is supporting the Encore proposition that was mentioned earlier today. We're going to get to that towards the end of the presentation. But to start off the presentation, as Mona mentioned, we're going to talk about some results of a survey that Nokia did, and we commissioned a company to do in the IoT space, and pull out of it some of the key messages, just to put IoT in a slightly different perspective, I think. So firstly, IoT adoption is powering ahead. There's a diverse range of applications. So this first chart is, it's difficult to read that, but on the left-hand, this is use of IoT. On the left-hand side, it's all departments within an organization. The next bar is some departments. The next bar is specific areas. So, generally widespread adoption within enterprises. Consistent with that, we've got the top applications are very diverse. They include things like tracking, logistics, performance management, field force automation, digital signage, healthcare. Very wide range of applications being deployed. I guess everyone kind of knows that. But the thing about IoT fragmentation is the closer you get to it, the more fragmented it looks. It really is remarkable. Even to fleet monitoring solutions. One might deploy the intelligence locally, the other one might deploy the intelligence in the cloud. That means you can do radically different things with the information and the data. And that's one of the key learnings really with IoT. No matter how fragmented you think you understand it is, there's always more to go. And the other corollary is around application agility, the need to build applications in a way that you can move the functionality around as your use of the data evolves. And that's going to become a key thing. That's going to drive a lot of platform developments in the medium term, and particularly around edge. We said, what are people doing? What's the primary goal with adopting these IoT solutions? And here you can see two blue bars. The first blue bar is new revenue. The second blue bar is reduced costs. So basically an even split between generating new revenue and reducing the costs. And within the new revenue, you've got getting more customer insights, getting a competitive advantage, increasing quality, expanding capabilities, and the cost side is improving efficiency and I think just straight reducing costs. But I'd like to step back a bit there. All of these things and all of the things in all of the surveys that I've ever seen around why people are doing IoT is around competitive differentiation. IoT enables competitive differentiation. And what that means is that the companies that are doing it have a competitive advantage, and those that aren't are at a competitive disadvantage. It shifts market share. There are some great examples, particularly in medical devices in the US, where some of these markets were a 60-40 split between two leading companies, and the guys with the 40% market share introduced an IoT solution, and the market share flipped 40-60. I mean, that's a huge impact in terms of the profitability and opportunity that second company was getting. So really, it's about competitive differentiation and competitive advantage. Types of project. This is something that often people don't really consider in the IoT space. There's a lot of brownfield there. So on the left-hand side is completely brownfield. So this is taking existing assets, pulling the information into an IoT platform. And then you've got brownfield with a bit of greenfield. That's augmenting your existing assets with some new devices. And then the next bar is greenfield with a bit of brownfield. That's integrating new device estates with a bit of legacy deployment. And on the right-hand side, completely greenfield. Now, most people, when they think about IoT, think completely greenfield. And the reality is, much of IoT is about brownfield. And it's about doing more with the existing data. And that places a lot of emphasis on the systems and the application enablement level, and pushes a lot of the action and a lot of the opportunity in the direction of systems integrators, because this stuff's hard. Adoption dynamics suggests it's early days. So our survey suggested something that was much more IT-centric. It suggested on the left-hand side it's single departments initiating the purchase of IoT solutions. This next chart says that it's the IT department that is the influencer in the purchase cycle rather than operations or the CEO or the strategy departments. And on the left-hand side of this chart, the departments that are utilizing it's the IT department rather than the opportunities, rather than the operations and field force and security and manufacturing production lines. It's IT-centric, and the challenges again are much more around IT. So it's ensuring security, it's systems integration, and speed of deployment. So very much an IT-centric message there. But the future's bright, basically. There are lots of future plans for deploying applications, smart energy management and self-optimizing production and various forms of predictive maintenance and so on. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And interestingly, this share of IT budget that will be IoT, if you look at the light blue bars, that's 2018, and the dark blue is 2020. So you can see on the left-hand side, that's less than 10%, and on the right-hand side, it's 70 to 79%. You can see very much that skew is moving to the right. And a lot of companies are expecting to spend in the region of 30 to 50% of their IT budgets on IoT. That's huge. So this thing is here to stay. So the messages of this really are that IoT is more about open environments and new business models and value networks. It's a next technology revolution. It's a new way of doing IT rather than something that is a new and standalone market, effectively. And the focus is often brownfield assets. So it's a big and important thing. It's here to stay. It's going to be key and central to the way that business and operations run for decades to come. It's the new way of doing business. Or enabling business, I should say. So what are enterprises looking for when they buy solutions? Well, increasingly they're looking for global solutions, and these are some numbers from Analysys Mason. And the IoT connections in Asia by contract type. So there's about 700 million connections, and those that are procured on a global or regional basis is about 40%, 300 million connections. So the drivers of that are solutions for multinational corporations. If you're going to offer a solution to Monsanto, you better do it worldwide, because otherwise they're not really going to be interested. Global supply chains. So if you're Bosch manufacturing a washing machine, you want that washing machine to work wherever it lands, in whichever market it lands in. And secondly, the supply chains, the actual distribution and vehicles and distribution infrastructure that supports the distribution of those washing machines, that needs to be connected, and that works on a global basis too. There are also some semi-standardized applications emerging. So think some healthcare applications, some worried well healthcare applications, or potentially stolen vehicle recovery. There's so much similarity in those solutions between different markets that we're going to see some emerging global propositions for some of these niche applications or potentially customizable solutions. And of course, some national connections will also be procured as part of multinational contracts. So just because you're in the same, you're a telco in the same market as the company procuring connections doesn't mean you're going to win it. Those connections they're going to procure on a regional basis, even for domestic connectivity. So that leads to a whole bunch of opportunities and challenges, basically, in IoT enablement. Firstly, global seamless connectivity is what the end user wants. They want, it needs to be homogeneous, it needs to be same SLAs everywhere, it needs to be easy to use, they need the same billing, the same tariffing in terms of whether it's charged per meg, per 100 KB, per whatever it is. So the same tariffing frameworks, the same SLA frameworks, the same fault resolution processes, just integrate once and deploy once in a homogeneous way. and it needs to integrate into enterprise back-end systems in the same way. And of course, scale and speed to the market. It needs to be cloud-based and pay as you consume to help those business models emerge and take the first steps from small scale to larger scale. So these are some of the opportunities and challenges that's happening around global IoT enablement that we see. There are also some challenges emerging around the old model, the old ways of providing IoT connectivity in a worldwide way. And this slide is based on interviews with some local operators in Asia. And we asked them about regulations and as they apply to roaming or permanent roaming in their markets, because clearly you can deploy devices in third-party markets just on a roaming basis. And it turns out that the regulators aren't too keen on this. So if you look at the pie chart here, 3% of operators said that permanent roaming in their markets was explicitly allowed. And 11% thought it was either de facto prohibited or due to other license considerations, and 8% said it was lightly prohibited, and 78% said it was unclear. And irrespective of how that 78% resolves itself, from an end user perspective, from Monsanto's perspective, if you're buying that connectivity in a market and you say we'd like to deploy on a permanent roaming basis, and the operators say, well, we're not really sure if that's allowed or not, that's not a good answer. You need certainty. So that 78% is actually a big problem in terms of deploying global solutions. So just running through some of the issues in terms of a roaming-based solution. There's data sovereignty. Great examples, Indonesia. If you want to deploy a service in Indonesia, you need to put facilities, you need to put hardware in Indonesia because you can't bring the data out of Indonesia. It's not allowed. Law enforcement, there's potentially legal intercept. Taxation, Australia taxes IMSIs, and this happens in multiple markets where taxing IMSIs is regarded as a revenue stream, and foreign IMSIs are considered tax avoidance, and I suspect that probably should be evasion, because tax evasion, because I suspect the Australians aren't too keen on it. Sovereignty and protection of local MNOs. Regulators basically don't want de facto new foreign operators starting up operations in their markets on the basis of roaming solutions only. That's not what they're there for. That's not what they run the markets for. So they're not keen on that. And of course, consumer services, where you've got B2B to C and you're offering services to local consumers. You need to be able to build that locally and have a local presence and local licenses and comply with local regulations, etc. So there's a lot of problems with just providing global solutions on a simply roaming basis. And this was the thinking, and this is what led Nokia to develop what we call the Worldwide IoT Network Grid, WING, Nokia WING for short. And basically what we have what we do is we deploy a global core. It's a distributed global core around the world. So it's a core network, and we put points of presence in all of those difficult locations, like Indonesia and Brazil and the UAE, etc. Where there are regulatory problems and you need local facilities. We also deploy enough network nodes so that there's something close, wherever you are in the world, to enable high-speed services. And we use that network grid to enable MVNOs all the way around the world. And basically, that is global connectivity, effectively as a global MVNO, offered and delivered via partners such as Tele2. Who can offer these services, global connectivity, standardized SLAs, standardized single integration, standardized billing arrangements, etc., on the basis of in-market MNOs, also MVNOs, with local facilities supporting it. And that means you can do things like 5G virtual reality because you're not routing the connection back to the other side of the world. You've got local facilities, your local assets supporting, or local platforms supporting that connection. And that's key. On top of that, it's the usual stack of device management, SIM solutions, relocating, rehoming SIMs as they move around the world, security and partner ecosystems, and we have applications on top of that as well in various verticals, and we help those verticals develop. We help integrate them, incubate them. So that's basically what Nokia Wing is. I'm just going to go through another slide to explain how that works. So this is basically an illustration of a supply chain, and it starts off with a device connected to a mobile network in Sweden. Is our example with Tele2. There's some artistic license with the picture here because Sweden isn't where it is suggested that it is on that map, but roll with it. So if we start with Tele2 in Sweden, and then we move to another market, and then a third market, what we're basically doing is we are relocating the device on a local network. So instead of being on a home network and then a roaming network and a roaming network, it's on a home network, and then when it moves to the second country, we give it a new device identity, it's still on a home network, and then when it moves to another market, we give it a new identity, a new IMSI, and it's on a local network. So basically what we're doing is end-to-end local networks, and if these are high-speed, high-bandwidth services, then obviously they'd be connecting to the local assets on our globally distributed core, to bring down the round-trip delays and so on, all viewed by a single pane to support the application or the application, the enterprise using that application. So it's a highly globally focused and very well suited to global procurement and global solutions. Cost effective because we're using local connectivity, low latency. And obviously there's regulatory compliance, so we're not getting caught up on any of those issues around permanent roaming in Brazil, because we wouldn't permanent roam in Brazil because we'd rehome devices in Brazil, and uniform SLAs and single integration. So that's basically a very homogeneous solution. Next up, I have a video. If this plays, is it going to play? I only have one button I can press, so there's a limited amount I can do. There we go. I think there might have been sound with it. But basically what we're showing here is a connected sensor on a pallet, leaving a warehouse. It sits on operator 1. As it crosses a border, flips onto operator 2. We're tracking the vibrations and all sorts of different parameters. It sits on an onboard network here, and obviously the connectivity is managed in a different way. So on the road, we'd be beaming out much more community, much more connectivity, much more information there. We'd concentrate and beam out the essential information to leverage satellite communications more efficiently. When it gets to port, it uploads the file and the data log of what's happened whilst it's been on its journey, and flips onto operator 3 in this example in the new market. And of course, then as the delivery destination, you know exactly where this thing is. You know where it's been throughout its entire journey. You can configure your factory for this thing, this asset as it arrives, and you obviously have your real-time monitoring across that entire supply chain, so you can optimize your entire operations, knowing exactly where everything is in your supply chain and where it is in the supply chain, and Sorry, these things are out of sync. So if I look down there, I get a completely different thing to up there. It's just throwing me ever so slightly. It's out of, so you know exactly where everything is. You can manage it, and that's quite important in the case of things like perishable device, perishable things like bananas or something like that. If you can actually adjust the temperature of the reefers whilst they're at sea, you can make sure they hit dockside at the exact level of ripeness, so that they hit the supermarket shelves at the right level of ripeness. And these are things that, huge efficiencies actually that can be gained with IoT solutions. So, right, we're in sync. So what are the main messages in this presentation? Well, firstly, IoT is transitioning from a differentiator to a must-have. So it's been a very leading edge and innovative thing, and people have been experimenting with IoT. We're quite quickly getting to the point where you've just got to have IoT to compete. Things like usage-based insurance policies. A car insurance company without a usage-based insurance capability now is in the situation where it's losing business. If you run a fleet distribution business, or if you're something like DHL or FedEx and you don't monitor your drivers in the distribution, of the fleet whilst they're out on the roads, you're at a serious disadvantage. So it's moving to a must-have, and it's going to keep going in that direction because it impacts competitive dynamics. Global solutions, they're increasingly global. They're moving away from being point solutions. They're becoming more globally homogeneous, globally purchased, and globally delivered. And the last thing just to mention is that Nokia Wing and Tele2 IoT, so we basically enable this new paradigm. So the proposition that we bring, we think basically supports that new and emerging dynamic of global IoT extremely well. And that is the end of my presentation.